Literally everyone has been being lied to since we were born and since we were little about the way that things actually are in the world. Because you're taught that if you have these issues in life, that you have a system that's there to protect you, or you have people in the system somewhere that you have people willing to hear you out and hear your story. However, this is just not the case. When I was growing up, and I mean when I was a little baby, I was poisoned by my own father so that he could perform this very sick act along with my other brothers being drawn into it, psychologically being damaged in a very demonic way by my own father doing what he did. What I witnessed, and I was the eyewitness to, was them inside of the room. I had opened the door. I barely was able to get up from my car seat, but I felt and heard what sounded like my sister in trouble. So when I walked up to the door and I could barely reach the doorknob or open the doorknob to open the door, what I witnessed was a life-shocking event that I had already felt without being able to speak at the time because I was just too young to speak. Not to mention I was being poisoned with intent that would make this event harder for me. So knowing that now, what I didn't know then, based on the patterns of abuse that have been very prevalent in my life, all throughout my life, it's the fact that these satanic ritual abusers that get away with trafficking, that get away with rape, are the people that are being protected. Meaning that if you have a story on the opposite end of the satanic ritual abuse, there's not many people that are going to be able to even be available to listen to your story. And this is also done on purpose, where if you legitimately had supporters, then you would have more people available to listen to you, to help you on the real levels, like the physical levels, the emotional levels, the spiritual levels, and help you actually figure out a way to move away from the crimes that have been committed. I've mentioned to the system, I've mentioned in report that I would require a new name and a new social, and to be able to have a free way to get away from the people that have been hacking me and hijacking my life. But what you don't realize is that these same areas of people that are supposed to care about your natural rights, your invisible rights that are indivisible for justice for all type of thing, like the Pledge of Allegiance that we grew up with in high school and elementary school, I should say. So I don't know if that's still allowed in school. I highly doubt it, because it had mentioned God And this world is really determined to get rid of God and God-fearing believers. So everything that's been instigated inside of our lives has been to create a wedge in between your availability to be able to have a relationship with Christ and have a relationship with the Lord. So, being that we don't have that availability being protected, what ended up happening was I walked into the room or I opened the door, I should say, and I had fallen down. I was barely a toddler. I was a baby. If you ask me, I was still a baby. And the progressive situation from there in my life just got worse. It bled into being poisoned in my home life because my dad only had visitation rights. Theoretically, I don't think that he wanted me at all around. And it was basically because I just don't and wouldn't want to side with the ways that things had been. And I think that my life threatened him. It threatened him to think that if I was able to actually have the ability of my mind without being arsenic poisoned, that I would be able to get out from under and be able to expose these things much sooner than I have been trying to expose them today and in the last few years. I've been meaning to come out online for, I want to say, about 17 years prior to the time that I started, so you're talking almost 20 years ago that I would have been creating content instead of hearing what you hear now, and I believe wholeheartedly it would have been a whole lot different. So either way, because of the intelligence of the facts, or however you want to say it, because of the facts and the intelligence that I've gained from being able to not only just be locked in my state of in mind and unable to really talk, I studied a whole lot of things having to do with, targeting, gang stalking, guerrilla warfare, covert warfare, spiritual warfare. And so I'm kind of a guru when it comes to that fact, and I know what I'm talking about. So these brothers never wanted me to grind, never wanted me to be able to get out from under their thumb of control. And so when it would just be continuing to control my life covertly and unwittingly, being poisoned anytime there was people around, or whenever they would feel like they could get away with it, that's what would happen, and it would lock me in this place of fear inside of my body that I couldn't explain. It was very painful. It felt like being stabbed all over my body. And in the recent, it's the same thing that's been dropping me from my toddler years on throughout my teenage years on throughout into adulthood, and even while being homeless, having Jesse Lee being the proxy artist there, I believe, that had close ties with my dad, or I should say my brothers, but I believe both. Makes perfect sense. The reason is because these people, if you're going to speak out against their poisoning you, their contrite ways to try and control your life, so proxy warfares to control your relationships, anything organic in that nature or that was organic was either determined where they move away, determined where they end up dead, determined where they would either be brought on to this spiritual and psychological warfare against me, bribed, manipulated, or having some kind of incentive to be incentivized on that team. So if they're on that team and you don't have a way of getting away from proxy and these people wanting to keep you in proximity, then your accounts are hacked. Your life is just being completely staged around every single thing that you try to do to get out from under. My phone number, or one of my old phone numbers, was taken over specifically when I needed a code to even try and get back into my email that was associated with my first Facebook account, and have had 2 Facebook accounts and Instagram accounts taken down. They've had control even over my Instacart and my availability to money. Regardless of setting me up in my last every job I've had to be poisoned, determining my personal personification and my personal performance in any job that I've had. It's also staged up random strangers with, unknown to me at the time, faces and names. I'm sure I could name a couple of them now, but it's beside the point. They got the job specifically to get my job away from me, or to help them, the syndicates, out with being able to poison me. So I understand, I know how it sounds, but I'm actually speaking the truth about my experiences based on the fact that the same things would happen and take over, take over the performance of my origination of mind and control and everything like that over the arsenic poisoning. You literally you don't have the control of your natural states of mind. It just gets taken over. And it's all because of their affairs. They're continuing this proxy warfare and them wanting to get away with these crimes against you, where it's not just not allowing you to see it for what it is, but it's just the fact that they can be mightily scared if you're in a pushed state of reality in that fashion, to where you are enraged, because being poisoned in the first place leaves you, one of many ways, but mainly sad, frustrated, and confused, or enraged, because you're just reaching out for love and it's not there. You don't have any understanding as to why they would treat you certain ways, why they would do certain things. But it's just like growing up, being a kid, having my brother bring me my pop and being like, "Oh, thanks, man, I was thirsty," and he just walks away, really awkwardly and weird. But you actually can determine for 20 minutes, 30 minutes or something that drink was poison. And so you're coming at your own brother why would you do that to me? And I'm gonna have to, how do I do with this? Why won't you help me? No, you did this to me. And it was just, I don't care. It was I don't care about you, is the attitude that you get. So real brotherly love right there, real good man that man turned out to fucking be. So I don't care how these people move. I don't care what these people have to say. I'm going to continue to speak out about this stuff because I need to reach breakthrough in my life. If there's any kind of breakthrough out here for a guy, based on the fact that I'm speaking the truth. I've been poisoned up since I was a little guy, up to about 2 years ago. And ever since, the cyanide attacks is what I think they were. because my body had grown accustomed to the arsenic, I believe, is the only way I was actually able to get out of it alive. And because I did, and these people really didn't want me to make it out alive, they wanted the covert warfare and the covert abuse and everything that they were doing to determine my life into an early grave. And so by me getting away and calling them out on their crimes, it was immediately after that that I had a staged event working yet again to send a syndicate to me to spray me with a what I believe is a cyanide attack, or it was definitely something, because I did almost die. I literally was going like completely unconscious driving down that road, but I didn't want to stay where I was picking up that order from. And the reasons are that they would do this is because, well, Jesse doesn't want his mom to know. Aurelia wouldn't want her kids to know. Both of my brothers wouldn't want anyone in their families or communities or anyone around them to figure out the fact that I'm speaking the truth. But I am speaking the truth. These are actual facts of my findings from being an investigator in my own personal life since I could ever remember, because of these events that have been staged in my life time and time again, all throughout my life. So every time that I've had a little bit of sunlight coming back into my body, I've definitely wanted to move away from these people, because I couldn't tell what was happening at first. I couldn't literally say at 14 years old or 15 years old that my brothers are poisoning me. I would just say something is happening to me and I cannot stand being around these people, and I need to get away from these people that are doing it to me. And it's just too close for comfort, being the thought in my mind at the time that it was my brothers, and my always having questions of their content of character, like, what was that you did to me? What was that the other day? You guys did something to me. I know you guys did something to me. You know, and just like having reoccurrent memories of just that fact and that fact alone over and over and over up until that point. So after that point, it got really bad, because then I had a friend who I thought was a friend, but was never ever my friend. Like, I legitimately wanted to get away from him, like, pretty closely after I met him. I never was, and I never could, because my mind, you cannot control an arsenic poisoning. You cannot. There's just no availability of your normal thought process when your brains are literally suffocating for oxygen, as is the rest of your body suffocating for oxygen. And not only that, you need love in your life. It's like you can't just go through life as like a dumpster baby. That dumpster baby dies. And if that dumpster baby makes it, it's by a short miracle that the baby that was thrown into the dumpster makes it through and makes it out alive. I've literally found a story about that where there is a guy that made it through something like that alive. And it's just horrific. Just horrific. So it's really hurtful what these people did to me. I had much talent, I had much gift inside of my availability of giving, and so by them creating this proxy warfare, as you can imagine, I hurt like crazy. Emotionally, I hurt like crazy. Physically, I still have experiences of like reading up on the aftermath of these abuses, what happens to a body, and trust me, I study everything, because I never had the availability of being able to speak to let people know what is actually verbatim going on with me. So now that I can connect my thoughts to my mouth, I'm utilizing my mouth as much as I possibly can. I know that it takes an awful lot to reach breakthrough, and that's what I'm really feeling I deserve, and really feeling what I'm after. Not after to hurt anybody or harm anybody or be anything of the sorts. What I'm after is being able to get my livelihood back and being able to live my life away from people that would want to hack me, control me, hijack me, get in the way of me, poison me, setting up, another covert operator, type of situation in order to get to me to harm me in my body. And I know that most people in the world could hardly give a hoot about what I'm actually saying here. They don't care, and even if they do care, and they can be silent supporters, that's legitimately the extent of support that's like legitimately offered to people that are in my position. Unless I can actually get out there to meet somebody that would actually love me and say, Matthew, I'm not going anywhere. I am here because I love you, and I'm here because I care about you. I'm not here for any other reason. And that would want to help me, actually help to get away from this covert abuse that's been happening all over my life. So, I'm looking for rare individuals, because there's not many people out there that could even tolerate a little half of what I've been going through in my life to even consider having a plan of action with me to help me out of the situation. And when all of it is like you get led into, like my last job being poisoned, trying to get away from a girlfriend that was by proxy, which she as well was doing my friend, my supposed friend, gaslighting me in my home, having stolen my keys so that they could come back to my home. This is all by design. Every last little part of it has been by their design, to ensure that I don't have an organic relationship, I don't have an organic love life, so that they can continue poisoning me by proxy war. And that I can see through the proxy war now and the psychological abuse. It's literally the state finding anything at all that they can try and make me out to be the criminal, knowing far well that I'm not the criminal. At least the ones that know they're in cahoots with, whatever occultist design these traffickers are in, that my dad could even suggest to threaten my sister at a young age on taking the stand, to suggest to her, if you speak out, I'm going to kill you and your whole entire family. So anybody that could suggest to that and be able to pay people off and bribe people through the townhome that I was living in order to lead my mom into a psychological warfare that she couldn't handle alone, and that her family couldn't deal with inside of the relationship that she had gotten herself involved in. But that's beside the fact of it being a literal warfare when a person is trying to help their kids, and then their kids that are siding with the shitty fucking father that he was, Tom Murden, that they would be manipulating as well and utilizing the love that they could gain in order to continue manipulating. And because they could get away with it so much, it's an otherwise way to state that they're going to feel, very like bigger and better and able to move in that way to take over their little brother's life, which is what they did. They took over my life, they took over my mind, they took over my love life, they took over every aspect of my life. They hacked me, they had me within a proxy warfare to continue moving to take over my life, continuously stealing my time, energy, resources, even money, even cryptocurrency, steal up my time to do anything else. And at times that these things happened, I wished I would have never listened to them, but you don't know these things and you can't see these things, i.e. the poisoning works very well. It works very well to wipe a person out of being able to reason through anything, to be able to see what's actually going on in your life, and to be able to move any different direction that you would otherwise have the wherewithal to move if you weren't being poisoned. Just having the reason about your mind and not having the block of mental lapse that it creates, where you just literally can't remember anything. You can't remember anything past 20 minutes or an hour, depending on what it is and how serious of a thing it is. And so the only thing that you have is studies. The only thing you have is going to the Lord. The only thing you have is constantly staying in prayer. And it's not to suggest that it's a light thing. It's a huge thing to have the Lord. And it's a huge thing to have prayer. But the fact, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the Lord. Like, legitimately, I would not be here at all if it wasn't for the Lord. So, we want to take our prayers to the Lord and be able to get away from this strife. I want to be able to get away from the strife inside of my life. I don't see why there hasn't been already, after this many videos, someone that's able to help me. But the fact of the matter is that it's just continuously in my life. And it's continuing now in this sort of way where, like before, when I had legitimate reason to go into the hospital, twice by ambulance, and two or three times either the doctor or the hospital or the urgent care, needing help regarding an arsenic poisoning in my life. I really needed to get help, and they wouldn't help me on the physical level. The only thing that they were willing to help me out with was to try and get me into a mental health unit, which is the same thing that they did before, which they ended up holding me against my will, and they didn't have any right to hold me up against my will with what I had going on in my life. Like, no reason whatsoever. It was all just being predetermined, prefaceted inside of my life to ensure that I wasn't going to be able to get away from the proxy warfare, and that it was also a great stage to elevate for the reasons of it sounding more like a mental health situation of, whatever they want to create the crime against me to look like. It's what their plans are, but anybody who's anybody knows that we have a crisis in America of poisoning, toxicity, and parasites being, a lot of the root causes of certain diseases and certain ailments. And it's legitimately like $1 trillion industry, annually, to be able to control the symptoms of what these things create inside of people's lives, so that they can just continue poisoning up our food supply. Like, choose your poison wisely, basically, because oftentimes people are legitimately just feeding their disease, feeding the parasites that they don't know exist inside of them. But there is a way to get rid of those parasites and down in the molecular level in the microbiome inside of our actual bellies. But they don't want you to know these things, and they don't want you to think holistically. Obviously, there's been like many hundreds of holistic doctors and holistic practitioners that have been, like, technically by their mainstream, that they were all like, they all committed suicide, but that's just not the case. They were suicided for a very specific reason that the cartel has, to run game over the American people and over people of the world, because it's about control. And the demons that want to control and fester in that kind of way and control another person's life are just sick. They're just sicker than sick. They have a sickness. They run with that same sickness. They don't want to actually do anything to actually help support people inside of a real way that is to help them get out of these situations and help discover root causes. Because if they were to help people discover the root causes and move towards that way just in healthcare alone, they wouldn't have as much money. They wouldn't have as much, leverage, as you could say, over the lives of others, much like they're creating leverage over the much, dependent created me to make the dependency a vulnerability, to then take that vulnerability and now weaponize it within the states or within the county to take away benefits and stuff like that. It's legitimately like I've been dealing with one thing after another since I figured out this crime, and it just doesn't end. So my hope is that I can reach like an Andrew Tate or an influencer or some kind of person that would be willing to help support me and offer me some kind of way to get representation, true representation, to suggest that the person coming out of a long-standing poisoning and in that kind of state and frame of positioning, that they're not in no way a criminal or to be treated like that of the criminal. It's these people that have been doing these crimes to me that are the criminals, and it doesn't matter who and where and what power that a person has in place to protect these criminals, because that's just being a part of the crime. And I'm not saying that everyone out there is a bad person. I'm just saying that there's definitely a syndicate of power-hungry people that legitimately want to make sure that you can't get out from under. You can't even suggest to the facts of what I'm saying. Like, $1 trillion industry annually to control people's lives. Like, I understand where people can think, and by like being completely indoctrinated by the school system and by the education that's out here, and by them repeating lie after lie on every single channel that people watch. But I suggest that people start doing some diligent research into, naturopathy, holistics, Ayurvedic medicine, using the herbs and using the things that God gave us in order to make clean plants. Because if you ask me, it's just a sickness. It's already a sickness that we're spraying our crops, or allowing them to spray our crops with poisons to keep the pests away. Well, what do you think those things are doing to our bodies and our minds? And then also, do we just live in a big old mental asylum then, because we're like treating people like guinea pigs to a very covert mechanism to keep us sick and controlled? Because the Lord did not make us to be sick and in control by a mind control system, or a system of mind control, which, if you break down the words of the pharmaceuticals and these places of sorcery witchcraft, you get pharmakia, which is the sorcery there and the witchcraft there. And then if you break down the word government, govern is to control, or ment is the short for mentis, which is mind. So if you put those together, you get control of the mind. And so they've been working in this way for a long time through, CIA campaigns, cartel run, whatever, just a bunch of occultists' design of satanic ritual abuse, one-upping each other, being a part of Skull and Bones, and performing 9/11, and performing different things inside of our world in order to control life and not allow you to actually get to enjoy the beauty of nature, the beauty of your time and energy, get to enjoy the beauty of having a love life that's not proxied, getting to enjoy the beauty of just having things not only paid for, but being able to actually work your job and work your mission in order to like actually make a stable life. But see, that's exactly what these people never wanted for me. And now that I see it, like I said, now that I see it, they're trying to take any little thing that they can to make me out to be the crime for their all crimey actions and grimy crime over my life. So this is why I'm speaking out an awful lot out here online, and it's also the exact reason why I don't have very many people that care, that legitimately, like, you'd think that they would care, but it's the reasons that the support system I did have was very actually minimal compared to the thought process that I had people in my corner at all. You know what I mean? Because the people that I thought I had in my corner were the same people that I was going to for help, to afford to their own consciences anyway, to take over my life in a finite way. So I'm going to keep speaking out, but I just really wish that I had somebody out here that would hear me, or at least want to get my message over to somebody that could hear me and care, because it's like, all I want to do is be able to live a better life. And it's like, if they can't see that I'm telling the truth and having legitimately been a poisoned victim all of my life, and that these people just control and get to take away the rest of my life, I'm like really sad about it. Like really super sad about it. Because it's like I haven't been able to live a little tiny bit of my life, and I get to see a lot of people that can actually smile and glow up and, really be able to take their enthusiastic selves into the world. And that I don't, it's not a jealousy or an envy thing. It's like legitimately me looking over other people and just like really glad for them, but I'm also really sad inside that I don't get to feel that joy. I don't get to feel that Kodak moment, for an example, I don't get to feel that. So my goal is to be able to feel that. Detox my body, hopefully, and be able to live. I'm like I said, I'm dealing with an awful lot of pain. I could just end up dead, and it's scary to me, because it's like, I'm really trying to push through these pains, both emotionally and physically, and it's just been a long time of me, like, legitimately fighting this stuff, and then at the same time, I'm